welcome to episode 17 of Live Life by Design. I am your host, Nicole Mantilla Parato, and today I have a very special guest, Angela Fitz. Angela is the founder of The Nurturing Well, an empowerment ambassador, health and wellness advocate, and lifelong student dedicated to living a life of holistic, spiritually enhanced youthful vitality. Angela has a superpower to create sacred, luscious, rejuvenating experiences and spaces. She created the Nurturing Well out of a pure passion to serve her community through offerings of self-care and spiritual practices that transformed her life. You see, Angela underwent a spiritual awakening over 17 years ago, and she was called to the big island of Hawaii to do some radical, deep self-healing, to face her shadows, and to learn how to love on a whole new level. She fell in love with the magical essence and sacred power spots on the island, and now offers retreats and healing experiences. Oh my gosh, there's just so much energy coming through as I read this, that use the elements, ocean, vibrational medicine, and nature to nourish the mind, body, and soul. Angela is a highly sensitive person, otherwise known as a highly intuitive empath. She uses this as a superpower to curate, guide, and facilitate sacred spaces that allow each person to drop into their hearts and explore a new level of wellness, healing, and vitality. Angela embodies the spiritual practices that she teaches, aiming to inspire others through her own journey of wellness and self-discovery. Her expertise lies in authentic communication, compassionate nurturing, trauma release therapies, breath work, yoga, Reiki healing, meditation, and so much more. Welcome, my angelic sister, Angela.
Wow. That was quite the introduction. I'm like even hearing it, I'm like, wow, whoa, who's this? That's me. Thank you so
That's
much. It was a
you.
beautiful introduction and thank you for having me. I'm so excited to share. Oh, what a journey it's been. Ooh, it has been a journey. Yeah, and I remember finding you all those years ago through your YouTube channel. A sister friend of mine I was going through a tough time at the time through my relationship, my marriage, and a sister friend of mine who also does light language says, I have this YouTube channel that I follow and this girl, and she really speaks to me. And let me send it to you and see. And so I found myself in the wee hours of the morning when I'd be restless or when I would not be able to sleep, and I would go to your YouTube channel and just listen to all of the light language activations. And it was just really helping me kind of move energy through. And at that time, I was definitely aware of what light language was, but I really hadn't ever really tuned into a specific person doing it. Um, and so that was really kind of my first time of like, okay, let me go ahead. Because at that time, I was just like, I'm not going to close myself off to any tools that are being presented. And this girlfriend of mine who presented it to me, I deeply trusted. So I was like, okay, yeah, like it can't hurt. Let me go ahead and give it a shot. And then I just ended up continuously listening to the, yeah, just listening to it, and then became a Patreon member for a while and then followed that journey. And so I've been just kind of ongoing. That's how I met you and got introduced to your medicine. And yeah, it just helped me so much go through some really dark times and coming to the realization that I did need to actually end my marriage. And as we know, that's never an easy decision to do. Um, so yeah, it helped me get to that place and stand in my power and realize and just taking that step in that journey, which has also led me to launch my business and step away from that 9 to 5 that we talk about that is so difficult to manage when you're in this spiritual conversation of really tuning into what you came here to do, right? And it can be so tricky to navigate because we do have that conversation of like, well, how am I going to support myself? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And I did just do that. I leaped off of the cliff, not knowing what was going to happen. And I had just made it up in my mind that if I can work for other people, I can work for myself. That was my first like realization, like that, because I'm a very self-disciplined person and I'm a hard worker. So I was like, well, those are the two qualities of a good, person who would be an entrepreneur. I've got those things down. And so that's also what helped me plant the seeds and birth the nurturing well. And I
I
think that was I want to say that was like 2019, 2018. Do you remember? It was like around that time
I'd
frame.
say about 5 years ago.
2019.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it was a
yeah,
while ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I am so freaking proud of you. And I remember ordering when you first came out with your essential oil sprays, and we were talking about living libations. You got me hooked on living libations. And just the connection. I felt you the minute you entered into my life with the comments on YouTube and then on the Patreon community. And I knew that you were destined so much. And I remember the beginning of your journey of you piecing all these pieces together and getting the courage to leave your husband and all of that. So I'm like, to see where you are and what you've been through, even since we've last chatted, is just phenomenal. And I know today we're going to talk a lot about the breast implant illness that you went
Yes.
through because we want to bring so much awareness to it. And Spirit really wants to talk about that and the healing and the self love for women to accept their bodies. And so, before, I really want to just dive right into that because the Spirit's like highlighting that's such a big topic today. Like, yes, there's so much that you've accomplished and there's so much we can dive into, but this is the forefront of the
Yeah.
conversation
This is
right
the
now.
meat. This is the
Yeah,
meat.
the meat.
Mhm.
So go ahead and share, first of all, when you got your breast implants, how old you were, the level of consciousness, and what was going on why you got them, and so forth.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a little math here. I got them 19 years ago. And I think it was 2000, it was 2004.
Mhm.
So let's see. That would have made me 34 years old. I'm 53 now.
Oh my God, girl, follow her beauty tips. Can you? Oh my gosh.
And so um it it all came for me a lot of because there's many different reasons why women choose to implant, right? For me, it came from strictly a trauma response, insecure, lack of self-worth, always feeling inadequate in that in my breast. I've always been a small, petite woman. And I was always smaller chested. And I think I also partnered with people, obviously, that were highlighting that insecurity in me as well, mirroring back to me that I needed to be something other than I was. And at that time in my life, I definitely wasn't who I am today and didn't have the wherewithal, the spiritual strength, the maturity, any of that to make better choices for myself. So here we are on that journey. I decided to implant. And it's interesting because when I looked at myself, the first time I looked at myself in the mirror and had taken off my bandages, I fell to my knees and started crying. That was my first initial response, because my spirit was aware that I had just done something that wasn't in resonance with my body. It wasn't a good decision for me. And you talk yourself out of it because like once you've done it, you're like, okay, I've done it now. Let me go ahead and just embrace it, right? And I always found myself from that point on just covering up, covering up, covering up. So it, instead of it
Really?
fixing the problem that
Oh,
you think that it's going to fix, it actually highlighted it. It actually made it almost like, oh my God, you've got these things on your chest, like cover up, cover up, cover up, cover up, because it was just, I was constantly focused on my breast, like constantly, right? So it became over the years, it was definitely a thing where I just, it was like you have this new outfit on and you just try it on and you're just like stuck with it. That's kind of how I felt. And back when I implanted, there wasn't near the education, there wasn't a lot of information about when you need to get, do you need to get to, how long can you have them in your body? Are they toxic? Is this like none of that? It was just kind of like, hey, we're just going to put them in and great, you have a new body and boom, go on with it, right?
okay.
And then through the years, I started, I think right at around a decade of having them, I was like, these things can't be staying in here forever. Thank God I never actually had any issues that I know of leading up to that point. And what I say by that I know of is because breast implant illness is a very tricky, sneaky kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, because of the list of symptoms that a woman can suffer from having implants, they can also mimic other underlying root conditions that a person is having. Say, for example, if a person has had chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, they think
Yeah.
they have fibromyalgia, but it's actually linked to the breast implants. But you're not linking it because you're like, oh, my doctor says I have, fibromyalgia, I've got chronic fatigue. You don't think anything about your breast being the issue of it, right? So there's so many like crossover things. And unfortunately, there's not lab or pathology work that can diagnose breast implant illness. And there's not a definitive test that says, you know what, you have breast implant illness, which makes it really difficult for women to really get to the bottom of what's happening, right? And unfortunately, too, women are spending a lot of time being gaslit by the medical community because they themselves either are not aware how toxic the breast implants can become. Obviously every woman's body is different and is going to respond different, so there is that. But there's women on these journeys for years and years and years just going through one chronic illness after the next, not being able to figure out what the heck is going on, and then come to find out it's the root of the breast implants. And how this is kind of being discovered is explant doctors, and I'll speak about my surgeon who was absolutely like grade A, but explant doctors who specialize in explanting are seeing that these patients are coming to them with all this like a plethora of all these symptoms, and then they explant and then the symptoms start to fade and die away. And it's like, oh, I don't have this. For me personally, I was suffering from chronic migraine headaches, debilitating headaches to where I couldn't even hardly function. I was having heart palpitations at night. So when I would lay down at nighttime, my heart would start to palpitate. And I was like, what is happening? And then I would have lots of body joint ache, pain aches, just lots of inflammation. I had gained a lot of weight, unexplainable weight. And for me, it was tricky because I was also in the middle of going into my Crohn phase, which I'm so happily there, and like transitioning into that menopausal phase and premenopausal now and going into menopause. And that's another conversation for a whole nother day because I also want to speak to that and how I navigated the two at the same time and how the symptoms also cross
Yeah.
over.
Well,
So
I
it's
feel like
really tricky.
I feel like we should touch a little bit on that because, I mean, I know that I've gone through a lot of hormonal changes. Once I hit like 45, things just started changing. But I think that is something for women that do have breast implants and are blaming it on perimenopause or menopausal symptoms. Yeah, share any kind of advice of how you navigate.
There is a lot of crossover symptoms. First of all, I want to take the word menopause and turn it into a beautiful experience that a woman naturally goes through, because there's so much negative connotation that lies with that word in general. And I feel like as women, we get to this place in our life where it's like, you're clutching on to your youth for everything you have. And just because you're going through this period, it means you're no longer youthful, or you're not, energetic and all these things. And I am a living testimony that that is not the case. And it doesn't have to be the case. It is how you intend to live your life, and how intentional you are, how much support you actually give yourself as you're going through that, and also how much grace you allow yourself to go through the process. Because the bottom line is it's just like death. We're all going to experience it. It's not a bad word. It's not this bad thing. And you can actually go through it with a lot more ease and grace than I think people have originally been told. And I think from the older generation, like from my mom's generation and my grandmother's generation, they didn't talk about stuff like that. They didn't, you don't hear women getting together in circles or gathering in spiritual groups and being like, how are you feeling? How's your body? Like, it was like something that it was definitely like almost all the women were going through it, but they never talked about it. And it made it like kind of a secret, almost like it was this thing where it's like, oh, you don't want someone to know that you've actually gone through that, or that you're going through it, when actually people were suffering in silence, and there's no reason to do that. There's so much herbal medicine now that we have access to. There's so much spiritual medicine, and being connected into your body and just being able to tune in and see, like, what is it that I need? Like, what's my body trying to tell me that I need a little extra of, or this or that or whatever. So going through it at the same time that I had the breast implant illness, it was a little tricky, but I actually was treating myself holistically. And I'm like, despite whether it's menopause or whether it's implants, we're going to treat all this. And the first thing is I got to get these things out of my body, which was honestly, for me, it was kind of like this spiritual initiation that I went through, because the longer that it was, okay, the physical symptoms were playing up, but my spiritual, intuitive nudges were getting so loud. It was like, you got to get these things out. You got to get these things out. First of all, it's sitting right on your heart chakra, like, so that you have a literal weight sitting on top of your heart.
Yeah.
And so there's that piece to it. But it was, I think you straight go into the conversation of like, wow, I've had these things for so long. They've become a part of my body. Like, what am I going to look like? What are the results going to be? What's the cost of this? What is the pain? What's the recovery? Like, all these things. And as a person who not only just was going through menopause and a divorce and launching of a new business and breast implant illness, it was like all these things. And I was like, wow, I mean, this is a lot for me to take on. So again, I always take myself back, and I know, Nicole, you are the same way. It's all about trust in your faith. It's always about, for me, it always goes back to how strong my faith is, and how I'm willing to actually just say, hey, divine creator, mother, father, God, source, universe, whatever the name is that you have for it, I'm trusting in you to take me through this process. I know that these need to come out of my body. I know I need the finances for it. I need the courage. I need all of the third dimensional grounded things to get to this place. But I also need support. I need nurturing myself. I need to know how I'm going to be able to navigate through this in the space that I am in right now. And, when you're launching it, when you're in a business that you're running, to take 6 to 8 week recovery time off, not being able, you can't move your arms, you can't do a lot of things. I'm like teaching yoga, I'm teaching breath work, I'm showing up physically for people. And that was like a no. It's like, no, you're not doing any energy work. You're not going to be doing any of your stuff. You're going to have to lay still in all of this, which again takes me back to the spiritual initiation that it took me through.
Mhm.
And So once I realized, okay, these things have to come out, then there was the financial conversation of like, this is a large price tag. Where in the world am I going to get this money? How am I going to just like come up with the money, get it done, and get this taken care of? And then the conversation comes up of the aesthetics. Like we are going to be concerned of like, what is my body going to look like after the fact after getting these things
Yeah.
out? How
Yes.
is that going to be, right? And so I had come to the realization at that point that the aesthetics fell second to my health. Like the health was the first thing that I really needed to address. And I knew that the first thing was getting them out of my body. In my experience and what I went through, there was absolutely, absolutely zero chance of me re-implanting. That was not going to be a thing. Because a lot of women, they get to that place and they're like, I'll just get them redone, and think that if you just kind of start over and get them redone, that you're going to like reset yourself, but you're going to run into the same issues. And I also want to say and preface this with this conversation, as we both know, is never to shame
Yeah.
or about anyone who's got implants, decides to implant any of that. This is just information, education, and what my own personal experience is. And there's so many women right now going through breast implant illness. And I think in the spiritual community specifically, we're finding that it's just not in resonance with the biological part of who we are. Foreign objects that are put into the body are it's just not in our what
Yeah.
best well-being, right? In our highest good. So we all have our journeys. We all have to go through what we go through to get to whatever these realizations that we need to. But I just wanted to preface that because I know that there is a lot of shame and can be a lot of shame carried with it. And there can be all kinds of really weird, odd projections and feelings that come in when you're dealing with something like that.
I want to just have you share too, because I'm sure a lot of people are curious, because it's not covered by insurance, correct?
Right.
And
Correct.
so, what is the cost that people are actually looking at? Yeah,
So for me, I want to tell a little bit of backstory, first of
okay.
all, of how spirit brought me to my surgeon. Like it was
Yeah.
so divinely, it was a divine assignment, and it makes me emotional as I talk about it right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Because it's like, as I decided that I really wanted to do this for myself, I was praying about the finances of it, but then I was also praying that I would be under just the right hands to go underneath the surgery, because like you're going underneath anesthesia, somebody's cutting you open, it's really serious, like all of the things. So I had said a prayer the night before and said, okay, God, I'm in your hands. I'm ready to do this. I'm open to receive. Just show me the direction that I need to go. Please send me the person that is supposed to have the healing hands that I need to be able to do this procedure the correct way, because we will talk about the correct way. There is a correct way of doing it. And literally, Nicole, the next day, now I know we say, our devices are listening to us and all these things, but the next day I'm on Facebook Marketplace selling something random in my house. And I'm rarely on Facebook, rarely. I always go on there for marketplace stuff because I sell things. And when I went on there, at the top of my feed, there was this surgeon named Dr. Khan, like never showed up before. And it was somebody who had tagged his page or something that was talking about breast implant illness. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, my phone's listening. Here we are. And I clicked on that, and it was like literally everything that I prayed for. This man is like just a God sent angel. He literally is. He used to work with burn victims and do burn reconstruction, and he moved into that from that into specifically in explanting. He does not implant. And that's one thing, if you're going to go through explant surgery, you want to find a surgeon who doesn't also implant, because it is a conflict of interest, if you would so
Yeah.
to speak, right? And his whole motto is do no harm, which is what doctors are supposed to be, right? Do no harm. So he does not believe in implanting, and he's also dedicated his whole profession to properly explanting and educating women on how to explant properly. Also, the aftercare, the before care. I mean, his bedside manner was impeccable. And so, yeah, it was like literally the next day after I'd prayed that. And then I got in touch with him and I did several consultations with several. And I mean, he just spoke my language, my love language, all about it. And he was the first surgeon that also said to me, it's important for you to have your mental health together before you go into a surgery like this, and that you need to really count on your sixth sense, your intuition to guide you. And I was like, wow,
Oh,
like, I'm like, this
yeah.
is crazy. I'm like, this man is like really speaking my language, right? A Western doctor speaking
Yeah.
in that manner. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, yes. I was all over it. So you asked me a question previously, the cost.
Yeah.
So the cost of it is around, I think mine was like 12,600.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 12,000, it was 12,600. That was the flat fee for it. And I think the day of surgery, I also paid another $600 for my anesthesia. My surgeon does not do general anesthesia. So I was not under general anesthesia.
What?
I was under twilight anesthesia, which the difference, if for people in your audience that don't know, is general anesthesia is when you go all the way under and you're on machines that are working your body. So you're intubated and something is breathing for you while you're under, right? That's general anesthesia, which is dangerous. Obviously, anytime you go under, it's going to be dangerous and can have a lot of repercussions to it. He does twilight anesthesia where you're breathing on your own, you're doing everything on your own, your bodily functions are still operating, and you just get a really nice cocktail that puts you under and you get a nerve block. And so you're completely the way that you're completely under as far as you know, because you don't remember anything, you don't feel anything, but you don't have to go under the general anesthesia, which can take a lot longer to recover from if you go under the general anesthesia.
Right.
So that was another reason why I really wanted to go with him. So around for me, it was a little bit more expensive because my surgeon was also in the mainland and I'm in Hawaii. So there was the flight and then in a hotel. And by the time I wrapped it all up, but it was worth me to fly and get it done the
Mhm.
proper way. I would say I spent about 14,000, maybe a little over that. And yeah, so that's what you're looking at. And it, when people hear that, they're like, wow, that's a hefty price tag, because to get them in, it's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 thousand. I don't know what people are.
Really? I didn't. I mean, I don't know the price of them, but that seems like,
It's like less than
yeah.
half of like what to take it out. So it's
Wow.
a lot more expensive to take them out than it is to put them in, right? And it's also it's the number one cosmetic procedure, it's the number one cosmetic surgery
Mhm.
procedure in the United States is
So,
breast augmentation.
so when they take it out, what do the incisions look like? Like, yeah.
Okay, so this is another thing that people really like. For me, my surgeon was just he does something called the Kahn lift. His name is Dr. Kahn. It's the Kahn method. So a lot of women are like, okay, am I going to need a lift? Like, am I going to have to lift my breast, which is another whole nother surgery. It's not the same as explaining. You're going to have a whole other surgery. My surgeon specifically doesn't believe in combining the two, because you're already going to be under, at least if it's done properly, which is M block. And M block means that you're getting the capsule and the implant and the inflamed tissue all removed in one surgery. And that's at least 4 hours. So you don't want to really go and have
Wow.
another surgery
Yeah.
while you're going underneath all that, right? There are surgeons that do both, but he does not. His method is underneath. So mine was underneath the crease of my breast. And he goes in to the original incision that was made, right?
Okay.
He cuts out that old scar tissue, removes it, and removes the tissue so that you don't have any loose skin. Because that's the thing is like women are like, well, how am I going to look when my implants aren't in there and all this loose skin is there? So what he does is it's like a pseudo lift. He's not doing an actual lift. He's just taking out that extra skin and that old scar tissue. And then your body naturally will recoil and tighten. And then you'll just I actually prefer myself now than I did before with the implants. I was so happy with my results.
Mhm.
And of course, I'm a good patient. Like I followed everything to a T that he said. And another thing that women also want to know about explanting is drains. So they have these things where they put drains in you to drain out the extra fluid after you have your explant surgery. This is very common with a lot of surgeons. My surgeon does not use drains. So no drains, no lift is almost unheard of with a lot of surgeons. They're like, wow, how is he doing this?
Yeah.
And the reason why he is able to do that is because he does compression after the surgery. So you are tightly compressed for 6 weeks with a binder and a compression bra that you have to wear religiously 6 weeks, 24 hours around the clock, except for when you shower. So it is quite the process. But to me, it was worth it not to have these tubes and stuff hanging out of my body. And those also run the risk of having infection to
Mhm.
them because you've got like an open area and you'd also have another scar. So you have the one incision that goes underneath your crease, and then the it would be another thing for the tube, right? So it's
Mhm.
just too much. It was too much for me, and I did not want to go that route. So my surgeon didn't offer either one of those, and I was really grateful for that. And I healed up really, really nicely. And the thing that I haven't shared with you, because this is crazy, when you reached out to me on Instagram and it's like, I want to have you on the show and talk about your explant experience. And I was like, oh, yeah, great. You said you sent me the calendar, and I was like, oh, yeah, Thursday works for me. I'm clear on Thursday. It's October 3rd. I explanted October 3rd
What?
last year.
I had chills.
October 3rd last year is when I
Oh
explanted.
my
So
gosh,
today
it's your
is 1
anniversary.
year. It was wild. It
Wow.
was not, and when I chose Thursday in my mind, I didn't even think of like it being, I just didn't, I thought of the day of the week because I was looking at my calendar as far as like what day can I plug in. And it just, when I picked Thursday, and then it was like after I chose the date, I was like, oh my God, it was October 3rd last year. And it was like, so I had a whole conversation with my surgeon actually last night because
Oh my gosh.
his thing is that you need to you need to give it one whole year post-op to see your final results
Mhm.
because your breast changed throughout this year, right? And you're also still healing that scar tissue and tending to yourself. And so what he was like, don't base your aesthetics off of a month after or 2 months after or 3 months after because they're going to transition and they're going to change. And so he was like 1 year out is a good marker, and that's going to be pretty much your final result. And you're also at that place to where your body is probably going to be in a really good space as far as the detoxification of
Yeah.
having the
Yeah.
implant. So it's a lot of women. I had actually symptoms disappear within the first week of having them out. The first week of having them out, I felt like a whole new person. I
Wow.
dropped in this whole year, I dropped 10 pounds. All the inflammation went out of my body. No longer joint pain, no longer have any aches and pains, no migraines, no heart palpitations. All my breast implant illness symptoms have gone, completely gone.
This is amazing. I'm so happy that you listened to this.
Yeah. I
And
mean, there was no denying it any longer. And, this is the importance of doing the inner work, doing the shadow work, as we say, because your ego will have you trapped in these situations where you're choosing beauty or you're choosing whatever it is that you think
Mhm.
is happening for you over your health. and your health is always going to come first, right? That has to come first. It has to trump everything, because without that you can do nothing. And for me, I had just had it set in my mind. I'm like, again, I take it back to my connection and my relationship with what I consider God to be, and say, my body is in your hands, and I am open to receive the best care. I am open to, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm here being a good steward of my body. Show me the way. I will do all the things that I need to do, but it's time to turn the page on this. Like, I'm trying, want to start a new chapter. I want to get these things out of my body at all cost. And I really need to figure out how that's going to look for me going forward. And I honestly had released all attachment to any aesthetics around it. And it just ended up being like, I just loved myself even so much more. And I felt a huge spiritual up level and elevation after I got them out of my body. It was like,
100%.
yeah, I don't know. There was just like this huge
Weight lifted.
upgrade.
Hmm.
Yep, weight lifted and then an upgrade. It was like all this divine essence and light flowed in me more. It was like my body had more capacity to actually hold more.
Goodness.
And I just developed a lot more compassion for myself in the whole process. And I had a moment, just a very, I guess you would say, it was just kind of like I was in my living room one morning, and I was just lying down. I was doing some stretching, and I had this whole very organic process happen. And when I was taken back to the girl who implanted, and I had this whole ceremony for her, and just so much compassion pouring out for that part of myself that felt the need to do something like that. And it was just like I came full circle, and we met each other, and it was just like she had the compassion and love and, I guess, adornment for myself that she needed to feel in that time, and it was beautiful. I mean, the whole thing, I can't speak about it enough. It's been spiritual, physical, emotional. Had all of those, it's had all of those characteristics involved in this whole process.
And your story needs to be written and shared because there's so many facets to what you've been through. Even going to the Big Island. Now, I've had a lot of people on my podcast already. My friend Gail, she was called to Hawaii to transform her life, to do deeper healing than she's ever done. And Peter, who is the world renowned harpist that was on like 2 weeks ago, he was called to Sedona. Many of us get called to the land that we're supposed to be doing work on, but also inner healing. So, can you talk about? I know we're jumping to this, but I feel like this is really important because to follow the calling, if you're getting it, guys, to move somewhere, and a lot of you are going through spiritual awakenings right now, listen and trust yourself. Just like Angela, this is another example of how she followed her intuition. So, what called you to the Big Island?
So it was interesting because I had never been to the Big Island. I'd only been to Maui at the time. So my awareness of Hawaii was Maui. And that was like 5 years prior to me getting the heavy calling to move here. Um, I was right at the precipice of, like, I had just gone through a spiritual awakening, and as soon as I started going through of kind of like breaking down a lot of my religious programming, that was my particular story. um that's kind of how it happened, but really what led me to my awakening, I think, was the traumatic childhood and the traumatic sexual abuse and things that happened to me prior. And so when I went through my spiritual awakening, I was really called to do womb healing because of all of that massive trauma. And I just started hearing Big Island in my awareness. I was just like, Big Island, like, I don't know anything about that place. Like, I've never been there before. I don't know anyone there. And it was interesting because my kids were at a point where they were grown and they were in college, and it was like I wasn't in a relationship, I wasn't married, and it was just kind of like Spirit was saying, what are you waiting on? There's nothing holding you. You don't have any small children to tend to. You're not in a relationship. You're not even really, you don't enjoy what you do for work. Like, what are you doing? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to just follow the call. And I did. And I sold everything that I owned. I came here with 2 suitcases, no job, no awareness, not knowing how I was going to make it. But one thing I did know about myself is that I'm going to work. Like I'm a worker. I'm definitely somebody who is a self-starter. I'm very self-motivated. So I knew that whatever I needed to do, whether it was cleaning houses, whether it was I used to bartend, I always had that as a back, something
Yeah.
on I'm like, I'll go and make it work. Like to me, that was kind of like in my mind. I was like, I'll wait tables, I'll clean houses, like I'll do whatever I need to do to get to this place. And so once I answered the call, it was just like boom, 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 boom. As you know, once you answer a call, the doors just start opening left and right. People start appearing in your life. Things start coming in. Spirit starts introducing you into the direction. Your higher self is guiding you. You're going to all these places and meeting these new people and doing things. And after I got here, I was here for a few months, and I wrote a Craigslist ad for myself, and I wrote and said, hey, I'm a single female. I'm looking to roommate with another female. Here's some of the things about me, where I'm at in my life. And yeah, I just created a Craigslist ad for myself, looking for another female roommate to split expenses with. And then the next night, I kid you not, I was out in town, and I'm sitting at this place having some appetizers, and right next to me, a woman appears, and she's like, hey, we introduce ourselves, we start talking and everything. Long story short, she had put an ad out on Craigslist looking for exactly me. I had an appointment to go look at the place the very next day, but I did not know that it was her. So when I showed up the next day, it was her. And I ended up living with her for the next year and a half, and she is still my best sister friend after 14 years, almost 14 years. So it's been a 14-year long journey of friendship, sisterhood, and that's kind of how my journey started here. So I answered the call, and then she introduced me to one of her. She was also had gone through a spiritual awakening, was dibble dabbling into this world, this newness, and she had an elder friend of hers who was basically, you could say she was like a shaman. And she introduced me to her, and she did some womb healing work on me. And that activated me and initiated me in a way that changed my life forever. And then I started going on the womb healing journey, doing all this, the spiritual practices, and kind of tuning into getting to know that part of myself and recovering from a lot of the background trauma that I had gone through. And so that's kind of how my journey unfolded. And it just kind of continued to unfold from there. I met my husband, which, by the way, I want to say I had a beautiful relationship with him. It was a love of a lifetime. I still love him. I still have a connection with him. We are still friends. We just got to a place to where I think for me, my spiritual calling was greater than the relationship that I was in, and I couldn't manage to be in a relationship with someone that basically was kind of going in a different direction. And it's okay when people go in different directions. And it took me a while to realize that. And I was also trying to pull him along of where I was going, and that was not working. It was causing a lot of stress and strain in the relationship. And once I surrendered to, it's time for me to go a separate way and allow this being to have the experience that they came to have, and honor that, and then honor myself. Things, obviously the pain of the divorce was still very real, because I love this person. I still love this person till this day. And I see the king codes in him that just haven't quite awakened yet. but I was at a time in my life where it was time for me. Like the time was now. It was not like, wait, hold off. And so, yeah, I had a 12-year relationship with this person. And it was, I don't regret it at all. It was just time for me to move on. So here I am, and I've created the nurturing well all these years later, finally taking all of that time that I've been on island, received so much healing. Obviously, it's an aesthetically beautiful place. We all know that about Hawaii, but there is a specific energy, a specific to the Big Island. And all of the islands have their own energetic frequency, as you know,
Mhm.
and they all offer something different. I don't know if a lot of people know, but the Big Island is the baby island. It's the biggest geographical land mass, but it is also the baby. Kauai is the grandmother, and it's definitely the grandmother energy over there. This is the newest formed island. And for me, the way that I see this island is that it is a massive mirror. So
Mhm.
it comes and it highlights whatever it is that you need to see about yourself, which can be extremely activating, extremely hard. This is why some people come here and they say like the island is just like so
Reject them.
intense. It just
Yeah.
rejects it. And you have to come here with an open mind and an open heart and be willing to you know, dig your feet in and get to the root of what you are trying to get to. And that was exactly why I came, because I knew that there was this huge calling on my life. And I knew that I also needed to heal. And in the environment that I was at, where I lived before, it was not possible for me to access what I was able to access here. And my higher self knew this, and it was guiding me the whole time. And I just trusted it. Like, I can't tell you, and I know you tell your clients all the time, it's all about trust. You have to learn how to trust yourself. You have to lean into that. And I know it's really hard sometimes because we get confused off of what is our higher self and our intuition and what is like the ego conversation. And so people have a hard time really discerning
Yeah.
what it is. But I think the more you're connected into your heart and the more you're listening, literally listening, you're gonna get the guidance that you need. The
Mhm.
next step is getting the courage the to take the guidance that you're getting. And for me, so far, it's never let me down. I've never not once followed my intuition and been like, damn, I wish I didn't do that. Not once. It's never happened. I've always been like, wow, I'm so happy I listened. I'm so happy I listened, because it ends up being a lot more than I could even imagine in my mind, and a lot more than my spirit has even given me privy to yet. It's almost like you get the nudges and you get the whispers, and then you get to the place and it's like, wow, this is what was on the other side. And it doesn't mean that it's like you get over here and it's all rainbows and butterflies, because it wasn't. The journey has been arduous a lot of the times, and it has been a lot of excavating and a lot of purging and a lot of purifying and a lot of detoxing and a lot of letting old behaviors go and patterns go. Like it's been a lot, but I've been happy to be able to be present for the journey.
So, Spirit is really highlighting for you to share to the listeners and the viewers on the quantum moment that you knew that you were definitely going to leave your husband. Because I know a lot of people are in relationships and they're going back and forth and they're in that inner conflict, but then something just happens. And sometimes it's just like instant and overnight. So, you want to share that moment when you just knew that you had to release it?
Yeah. I had been getting the nudges early on. I would say about a year before I actually asked for the separation. There was always that part of me, because my inner child was still in the driver's seat a lot, and I was still in my marriage with my specific circumstance. I was actually playing out so it was like the wound that was present within the relationship was the same wound that I was suffering from my mother, my relationship with my mother.
Gotcha.
So I was still trying to be that savior. I was still
Mhm.
trying to be like, hey, let me love this out of you. Let me do this. Let me do that. Like I can make it better. Let me like give you all my healing and like we can just change this thing around, right? And when I realized I started doing a lot of inner child work, I realized, okay, my inner child is actually driving my relationship. It's the one that's hijacking me from being able to make these decisions. And then once I started really turning my direction and attention to my inner child and really started doing the healing and really sitting with her and reassuring her of like, hey, it's time for us to make a different decision. This relationship isn't of the highest good for us right now. It doesn't mean that you don't love the person. It doesn't mean that you can't love the person, but it's actually time for you to move
Yeah.
forward. I did my yoga training. And I'm just gonna be completely transparent here. Never in a million years did I think I'd be a yoga teacher. I just never wasn't. It just never was in my field. I just never thought I would.
Another thing, right? That just
Yeah.
comes
I
up.
just yeah, it just did. And there was a girl living in my house at the time. I was renting an extra room, my husband and I were, and she was a yoga teacher, like a very expansive yoga teacher, like had been all over the world teaching yoga, and she was also a had like a school and did all these things. And so she came into my field organically again. And she's like, I'm gonna do a yin yoga retreat. I'm gonna do like a week long 60-hour training. Like it's gonna be this and that, whatever. And never in a million years did I even think, oh yeah, like it didn't even appeal to me. And then it was like 2 days before her retreat. I woke up and it would hit me like a lightning bolt. Something said, join in the retreat, take the retreat, go ahead. And at the time, I used to use cannabis, medicating myself regularly. And it was my choice of medicine, right? I wasn't really a big drinker. I wasn't, I've just, that was my choice of medicine. And it was wild because at the time it was like, okay, you're going to go on this week long thing. You can't have any substances. You got to clear completely out. I mean, not even coffee. It was, I didn't drink coffee, but at the time, like if you were a coffee drinker, you were coming off of it, right?
Yeah.
So she was like, I need everything clear, all substances out. And that was like, I was like, oh my God, okay, wait, I don't know about that. And a spirit was like, go for it, do it. And when I took a week long for myself, cleared myself out from all mind numbing substances, after I came back from that week, I knew it was just like I was taking a bath one morning. It was clear as a bell. It says, you're ready. My spirit said, you're ready. It's time. And you need to go ahead and release this relationship. And I think it took that for me to clear out and to get really firm and strong in myself to feel like I could actually do it. And at the time, my husband was the financial provider. I didn't have a business established. I didn't know what was going to happen in my life in that way. And I just kept hearing, go forward, trust in yourself, trust in the process, let it unfold, you'll find your way. And, at this point, I was like, okay, I trust it. I'm going to trust it. It was scary as hell. It was very uncomfortable. I basically broke my own heart because, my inner child was kicking and screaming to stay in that relationship. And it was like, no, you have to let it go. And for me, it felt like letting go of a security blanket. It felt like letting go of a pacifier, liken it to a baby letting go of its bottle, or if it's being
Yeah.
weaned off the breast or something. It felt that intense for me. But I just nurtured myself through it. I prayed every day. I started to activate my business, and I just poured everything that I had into my business, into my life, and to creating my myself to be self-sufficient and completely independent. And honestly, last year was the first year that I worked less and made more money in my life than I ever had. And I was like mind blown by that because we're programmed to think you've got to be working 40, 60 hours a week at these grinding jobs that you're just not and happy with, that you're not fulfilling anything. And once I shift my focus to really serving from a full heart and being just showing up fully for myself, my business started to prosper. I don't even market it. It's like it's all been every spirit has landed my clients. I've magnetized everything to me. I've just been open the entire time, but I've also had my head down to the ground and been like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to create this, I'm going to go here, I'm going to knock on, like all these things. And so yeah, if I can say anything for the audience, if you're on the fence about whether you need to be in a relationship that may not be in your highest good, take that leap, because you're going to meet yourself on the other side. You're going to be so shocked at what's there. I've never felt so strong within my being, and I'm single. Like I've been celibate for 3 years, and I've felt great. Like it's just felt amazing. For the first time in my life, I have all my energy and all my presence for myself. And my business is flourishing because of that too.
That's such a deep thing, what you just said. I have all my energy because, as highly sensitive beings who are highly intuitive empaths, the partner that we choose to sleep with and be in relationship with can either, make us or break us.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
it's a really, a lot of people don't talk about this and they wonder why they're inflamed, they're gaining weight, they don't feel good, that they feel lower energy after sex. Some people even get bruising after sex that show up from like nowhere. It's because your body knows if that person is a vibrational match, and we have to listen to that as much as you want to stay in it. If your body is not opening like a flower to be intimate and feeling good and rejuvenated from it, then that's something everybody should really check in on.
Speaking into the body, my body had actually shut down to intimacy in my marriage almost like probably a couple years prior. My body literally was completely closed. Like I couldn't energetically even get to that space, which is another reason why my marriage was suffering, right? Because there was not, the intimacy was missing, but it
Yeah.
was because my body knew like, oh, this is not in alignment with you, right? And it's just like I couldn't open. I literally could not. Even if I wanted to, I could not. My body just would not do it anymore. So
I've had that happen
I
too.
I had to, and I knew that part, I knew that was missing in my marriage. Um, but it was like, you're with someone and you kind of just people get stuck in these ruts and thinking, you know, by staying that they're kind of like something's going to change or this and that. And I had already given it all that time. We had went to counseling, and the therapy was not an answer for us. And there was lots of behaviors going on from my partner side that I won't get into here, but that weren't in alignment with where I was at or where I was going, and what the trajectory of my life was. And honestly, partnership is beautiful. I think it's a beautiful thing. But I feel like when you have a strong calling on your life, a divine calling, you have to be with a partner that is going to support that calling 1000%. Because if you are not, you are going to be constantly, um, you're going to be constantly running up against a brick wall because your spirit is wanting to expand.
Mhm.
Your higher self is wanting to guide and direct you. And if all of your identity is wrapped up into a marriage or you being a wife, you're going to lose part of that essence that really wants to flourish through you. So you need to be in a partnership that is cultivating and nourishing that part of you. Otherwise, it's a no. Like just for me, it's a no. And for me, I'm like, I'm okay to be
What's
single
going
because I
on?
feel
Yeah.
really good. I'm so happy with that. If a partner comes in, it's got to be a divine partnership, and it's got to be someone that's gonna support
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at and what I'm doing in my life, because my spiritual calling in my life is higher than me being a wife. It's
Yes.
higher than me being playing any of the roles that I would play. I would even say it's higher than me being a mother. My children are grown, so they're well into their 30s. You're always a mother, right?
Yeah.
But my spiritual calling to me is so loud and so profound that it supersedes any role that I could actually play. And the role that I'm and the other roles that I actually do play, it has to be intertwined and infused with my spiritual calling, or else it's not gonna be.
Such an important thing to touch on because there are so many powerful women that find themselves single with failed multiple relationships because they come to the point where it's like, I'm more at peace being alone and living in my purpose and my gifts. And they don't want to settle for anything less. And like you said, the body won't let you. And
Mm-mm.
I just want to like kind of recap and speak of what wants to come through. So, it's really important that everyone listening just closes their eyes right now. I want to do a co-creating activation here to like kind of seal up all the juiciness that we're delivering to you. And to be with yourself in your heart right now. Let's just all place our hands on our heart and embrace what's heavy on our heart. What we've been ignoring that's been nudging us. We all get little signs and nudges, and we bypass it at times until it gets too loud. So, Angela and I invite you to be here with a truth that wants to emerge from your heart that you can safely hear and receive clarity. We want you to see the truth. And once you see this truth and feel this truth, it can't be unseen today. That's what I want you to take away with you. The truth that's going to come from being in this space is something that you need to feel and hear. Olamati okuria makushkina ki akusono muai diai. Release any heaviness and worry about money, relationships, what's next. Let's just drop off some extra weight and burdens. Gently bring your chin a little bit towards the chest. Breathe deeply and hold that womb space. And allow the inner children to feel safe and receive a healing. Allow everything to quiet down so that you can receive the truth of what you need to do, a higher truth that will guide you so you can release what has been causing conflict within. So, Angela, I'm going to pass that to you.
Mm.
So Angela is giving everyone energy through her hands. That's one of her gifts. So just everyone receive that. It's okay to say goodbye to people who no longer serve you. It's okay to close doors and end chapters and cycles. There's always something brighter waiting for you if you have the courage to let go and know that you are deserving of more. We all have a divine purpose and a divine mission. And when we travel to sacred spaces and power spots on the earth, we can remember. We can remember more of what our purpose and mission is. And Angela holds sacred retreats on power spots to help you rediscover yourself, to heal yourself with vibrational medicine through the sound, the food that she prepares, the space. And so we invite you into this nurturing well space right now that we're giving you a sample of. This safe, sacred space where you're held. You're held. So you can receive clarity and support to make the changes, to heal your inner children, to work with your shadow, and to be bold and courageous and follow the whispers of spirit. It's 4:44 right now, my time. I just opened my
I love that. Oh my gosh, how magical. That is so sweet. I love that so much. Oh my gosh.
So,
Um,
yeah.
One thing that when you were speaking that came through for me that I wanted to share as well is that, the shadow work and the shadow aspects of ourselves really get a bad name. And I think one thing that I've really incorporated in my life is that just falling in love with those parts of myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really falling in love with those parts of myself, fully embracing them as I would embrace my inner child.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the negative connotation, this is what makes people fearful to even go into the shadow
Yeah.
work. Because it's like, oh, these are the unconscious parts of myself that I don't really like or that I don't accept about myself. And for me, it's all about being integrated with those parts of myself. I've made it really clear to those parts of myself that it's about integration and not about a death or destruction. It's about like, hey, how can I harmonize these parts of myself and alchemize them into my full being because they have served me through this journey, right? It's like I've needed parts of those parts of myself when I needed them. And I think it's okay for us to allow them to mature and grow as well, right? It's like there are parts of ourselves that might be those unconscious or those parts that we so-called say that we don't like. But to me, it's more about like maturing spiritually and allowing yourself to be like, you know what? No, I'm like in a different space in my life and I'm in a different phase. So I can access those parts of myself and use them in a healthy way. So I wanted to say that too, because when I hear the word shadow, sometimes I'm just like, yeah, we've picked that up in the spiritual community as a label or as a term, but I also want to give voice to it and highlight it because it's like those are the unconscious parts of ourselves that really just want love. That just wants our
Exactly.
acceptance.
Love and acceptance, not rejection. Like
Yeah,
that's where the inner conflict comes. If you're like
exactly.
rejecting and hating on your shadow and shaming it, it's like yelling at a little kid, like you're not enough. Why are you acting like this? Why are you being like this? It's like,
Yeah,
no, like
yeah,
let's give it love and see what wants to be heard, what wants to be seen, like you said, so we can integrate, get the lessons, and then you have the stories. And I think that what's so beautiful and why you need to write a book is because you've hit some of the deepest places that made you skyrocket and quantum leap into a whole new realm. Because as low as you can go, gives permission for you to rise even higher. And like we have to look at it like that. If you can allow yourself to like go into those deep spaces, you're going to shine even brighter. And
Yes,
I think it's so important because I embrace, we'll just say it's the dark and light. Like we need, it's both. Like you don't have to put it on the term, but it's so important both because that's the alchemy, that's the magic, that's the storytelling, that's the hero's journey, that's the triumph, that's the inspiration.
that's Kali, that's Lilith,
Right.
that's all of
Yes.
these beautiful, wonderful
Right.
dark goddesses who are embodying a lot of the strength and energy and courage that we need. Like it's there for a reason.
Exactly.
It really is. And I'm learning to embrace it more and more and more in my life. And as I do, I feel like I become a force to be reckoned with, and I feel way more empowered, you know? One thing I want to backtrack before we wrap up is that when I spoke to the cannabis use and when I spoke to mind altering substances, I want to just clarify that I don't deem or judge any plant medicine to be anything than it is or isn't. I think that it can be a medicine for you and it can be really beneficial for people who dibble dabble and do whatever. But for me on my journey, my spirit was guiding me to be a clear, clean vessel with no mind altering substances so that I could find myself and be a very clear vessel. And I think when you're doing energy work, obviously, too, especially as like a Reiki practitioner or anything, you want to be super clear. You want to have yourself be open. And for me, I just wanted to speak to that because I think sometimes when we just mention stuff like that, it's kind of like people can be listening and be like, well, what's wrong with smoking weed, or whatever. It's like, no, I'm not finding any wrong in any of it because it definitely was a medicine for me. But I think what happened for me is I vibrationally got at a point where it was no longer a match for my life and for where I was at vibrationally. And it's important to kind of discern those things on your journey to where things aren't really serving you anymore. It's like, yeah, it was once upon a time, but now you're like up leveling and you're graduating and you're doing this and you're doing that and you're moving in this space. And maybe you're moving in a direction where it's not called to be. So
Yeah.
for me, that's my personal journey. It doesn't have anything to do with anyone else and where they want to be and where they are. There's no judgment in any of it. And I look at that person who did partake in those things, and I love her just the same as I love this person. But I just wanted to kind of speak to that because I think it is important that people aren't feeling judged. And the conversation is about really opening, right? It's really about opening ourselves to different people's experiencing, hearing things that you might be able to take away from the conversation that are beneficial for you. And it's a heart-centered space. So I'm not trying to call people out on that. I'm just saying it for my own self.
No judgment here, just sharing stories to inspire you so you can relate. And most importantly, trust your divine calling. And like Angela said, she doesn't market that much. She left a relationship, had to start a business, and had her most abundant year where she leaned back and didn't work as hard. I want to really just highlight that for all of you who tell the story that you can't. Because if it's destined for you and you surrender to the path and you listen to the nudges like she did, move to Hawaii, put out the ad for Craigslist, meet your husband, divorce your husband, get out the breast implants, build this, do this, you're going to be provided for. And I'm the same way, guys. I magnetize my clients. They're soul agreements. I believe we attract the people. It's soul agreements. It's soul family. It's set up. It's destined for us. We just have to say yes and trust. And yes, it's hard when we're in the initiation, but it makes all the sense once we do it, and it gets easier every time to be like, okay, I gotta really trust this time. I know that I'm gonna go in it, but I'm gonna rise afterwards, you
And
know?
also trusting the medicine that you're providing
Mhm.
for, like, trusting that there's a value in it, because I've heard this conversation so many times about, well, like when you're navigating in the world that we live in through the 9 to 5 jobs or through whatever title that you've taken on as your whatever you were educated to do, whatever that is.
Mhm.
For me, I've found that when I started my business, I had a lot of business like knowledge and wherewithal, but it was really more of my spiritual, divine channeling and essence that came through me that was the value. It wasn't a certificate that I got or a label that I took on or an education. And not to say that I haven't been years of reading and educating and seminars and workshops and all the things. I'm just saying that if you have something that you want to offer, find your unique way to put it out and offer it to the world. Somebody needs your medicine. Somebody will answer the call. And I think people get caught up on, like, because I have a girlfriend right now that's having that conversation of like, well, I'm not a psychotherapist, so I can't do this. Or, well, I'm not this and I can't do that. And I'm like, well, I'm not a psychotherapist either, but I mentor people all the time and I do share my knowledge. I do share my wisdom. I didn't live half a century through all this trauma and all these experiences for me not to be able to share with
Exactly.
people that actually help. I didn't do all this research and gain all this knowledge from food, from eating and diet and this and that. Like, I have a lot of things to offer, and you just got to find your unique way to package it. But you got to trust that there is value in it and that you're 1000% worthy to charge for your time. So I think that those are just the things that kind of people can find themselves getting caught up on because they're looking for the label. They're looking for the thing that says you're qualified to do this. I qualified myself. My life qualified me. That's what qualified me. And I'm very firm on that. I tell people all the time, I'm like, yeah, I'm qualified because I've lived through this. I've healed my body through it. I've healed my own self. I'm taking the medicine that I've used and I'm sharing it. So for me, I don't get caught up on all these things about like, well, you need to do this and you need to have this and you need to, no, I'm like, I need myself and I need to share what I have available. And if people are in alignment with it, they are. That's great. That's wonderful. And like you said, there are soul contracts. There are people that are going to magnetize to you because spirit is always going to guide people who need your medicine right to you. So you got to trust in that. And on the months, there are those times. My business has gone through those times where the clients aren't flooding in and where things aren't seeming like they're going right. But I've always noticed that that's a recalibration that I'm going through. I need to step back. I need the rest. I need to do all the things. And never, not once, when I look back, have I said, oh, I didn't have enough for rent, or I didn't have enough for this or that, or whatever. It's always been provided for. Even the cost of the surgery, I prayed about that. I didn't know where I was going to come up with $14,000. And within a couple of weeks, the resources were made available. So I just I just feel like I mean, the more I've trusted and the more faith that I've had, I see time and time and time again, it's never let me down. And I know you always stress that, and I'm going to stress it too because it has worked. It literally is working.
And I just want to share more people like Angela on this podcast and everybody that I have on that is creating their business that has left the 9 to 5 and they're doing their soul's calling because it is possible for you guys. And I want to say this because Spirit was dropping this in because it's so important. So Angela mentioned that she had that womb clearing when she first got to the Big Island. And I want to say that the womb clearing is so important, especially I'm speaking to women right now that are meant to birth businesses, because we have to heal a lot in our womb space, because that's where we birth our creations, our businesses. We birth it from that space. So once we get really clear there and do healing, the downloads are going to come in on what you have to do to purify your channel, to literally receive the next steps, how the business wants to be built, what the website wants to look like, what the colors, the feeling, all of that comes through when you're like a divine creator and this is what you're here to do. But that womb work is, I believe, a prerequisite for you to get prepared to birth a business.
I
So
agree.
important to say, right?
I agree. And for women, it's really important also that you protect your womb space
Mhm.
because and again, there's no judgment, but if you're in partnership with someone that is consistently downloading into your body that isn't like toxicity or whatever is happening, or multiple partners or whatever is happening. I mean, we're energetic beings. And as a woman, because we are being penetrated in that way, your womb is recording all of these experiences. It's remembering all these things on a cellular level. So the less trauma that you open yourself up to, chosen, not the stuff that hasn't been, on a soul level,
Yeah.
you know how it works, but on this level, I'm just saying the best for me, I think, is being really careful with your womb and careful what energies that you're letting into that space, because it does matter. It does matter.
100%. I mean, I'm married, and there are times I'm going to share something personal that when I'm in creation mode and I'm building a new business or I'm serving a lot of clients, I go through a time where I don't have sex sometimes. I'm just like, I have to be in my own energy and really keep a clear channel to hold the space for my clients and what I'm birthing. Um, and my husband and I, he knows that about me. So it's not like he takes it personally, but there are times where I just know that about my body. And I know a lot of people talk about, sacred union and using sex to amplify. And yes, you can do that, but there's also times that you need to just be in your own energy and honor that. So, women, if you feel like closing down sometimes, it's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay.
for sure. I'm a big fan of it.
I feel so much
Flourishing.
better when I do little periods of that. I get to know myself so much more because, like you, I'm such a sensitive being. Like, if he was even irritated and frustrated and stressed out about work or something, like I'll be like sitting there like the next day, like, what the
It's
fuck?
going to transfer right through.
I'm like, oh, I want to scream right now. Where did that come from?
I mean, I'm flourishing in my celibacy days. I'm just like, wow, okay. I feel very extremely, and I'm not saying that's for everybody, but
Yeah.
for me, I'm feeling very empowered, like extremely empowered. And like I said, this is the first time in my life that I haven't had my energy split off in through a relationship or with children or with even a pet. So recently my beloved Bowie went
Oh.
missing. He was like my best friend. But I also went through a huge initiation when he went missing, because I'm like, wow, this is the first time I'm actually all by myself, because believe it or not, my daily life was very catered around him because of the type of animal person that I am. I'm more of like a attachment paw-rating type person. And it was, I always made all of his food homemade, and like it's constantly like, does he need to go to the groomer? Is he, a constant, like we were walking every day, twice a day, which I'm still on that routine. Thank you, Bowie. But like my life had a lot to do with catering around him. I didn't like to leave him home for too long. I would always, if I'd be out, I'd be like, okay, I need to get home to tend to him. And now I'm like, wow, this is the first time there's literally nothing. I did get a fish because I need something.
I love it.
But I have this is the first time I've actually had nothing in my space to really tend to. And so all my energy is literally mine. And I think that that has made a big difference in where I'm at.
I love it. I love it. So I want to seal up this whole podcast with a little mini activation for you, just as a gift. I know we've been activating each other this whole time, but just what wants to come through for you, just a little bit of juice or a lot. We'll see how it comes through, but it won't be long. Are you open to receive?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I feel like I'm actually going to use my microphone and give you a vocal activation too,
Okay,
because I haven't given a vocal activation to you in a while.
I'm open.
Yes, and okay, so, and by the way, everyone is going to receive from this because we're all connected, and what serves one being will serve many. So, all
Thank you
right.
so much for letting me share. I really appreciate it. This is the first time I've spoken publicly about it too. I mean, my inner circle, people around me know the process that I went through, but I haven't actually spoke to it publicly. Um, I have a strange relationship with social media. I'm not a super um I guess it's not, I'm not afraid of being seen. I know it's not that, but I just feel I basically honor my process, but this is the opportunity for me to share it publicly. So I'm glad and I hope it helps.
Oh my gosh, it's going to help tremendously. So the first thing I invite you to do is to just close your eyes and put your hands on your womb space. And what was the name of your dog that passed away again?
But he didn't pass away, he ran
Oh,
away.
oh,
So
right, and
he
he
still
ran
missed
away. I'm sorry, he ran away.
Bowie.
Bowie,
Bowie.
Bowie. I just want to bring some energy into your womb space around that too. So cute, so precious. Okay. It's in your destiny to write your story, to write a book. To share your recipes. Food is medicine, and your recipes and teaching people how to bless their food and their living spaces and up level the vibration in their homes and in their kitchen is a gift that you have. Your hands hold magic as you prepare food. You amplify the nutrients in it. Salatia kum, the salads. Inasatia oskiariai. A recipe book linked to self-love practices and poetry and poems and written word that can be spoken before eating the meal. Alai, aoi, ai, ai. Creating rituals for receiving food in a loving way in your body and preparing sacred spaces for the food and where the food is kept and how it's kept and how it's treated. This is how you can heal inflammation, hormonal imbalances. The recipes have been gifted to you to share with the world, to help people heal from within and regenerate and feel whole again. Alai au sai ai au ki ai. Eaom. The ocean works with you as you bring beings for retreats by the water. The wind and the element comes in to clear the auric field and reset people from heavy, dense energies that block their channels, that block the clarity from them seeing who they truly are. The work you are doing is so sacred, and we see a space for you, a space where you have your own retreat center and your own staff to accommodate people with the recipes, with the healing and the technologies and the movement and the experiences to have more of a global impact. We call forth Goddess Lakshmi to bless you with abundance and resources to build and to create and to take time to actually write this book so that your resources are filled so you can write the books. Not just one book, books, multiple books. You're more comfortable in either a written expression. They're saying a written expression to deliver will really speak to the souls, and it's a legacy that's imprinted into the field, and people can feel the magic just from the words. And receiving grandmother spirit coming in to bless you during this next stage of your chapter. And your crone wisdom onosoriai to open up to even more recipes, even more ways to nurture your soul and the soul of others. Enakasai. And to teach people how to create sacred spaces and sacred temples. Just feel onasai ao kakaya namai. You're going to work in harmony with the ocean. Helping the ocean also clear the density as you're a pillar of light and you stand in the water. You work together to release and clear density from our great mother. You are a pillar of light. Receive more of yourself today. And so it is.
And so it is. I'm so eternally grateful for you and for this beautiful podcast that you created and just
Oh,
allowing voices to be heard and medicine to be shared. So it's so sacred. And I'm really, like, again, eternally grateful. So thank you so much.
it was such a blessing, and I
Mm.
just love everything that came through for you. Did that resonate for you?
Absolutely. As you were doing it the whole time, I could, I was envisioning, my healing center. I have had a dream and a vision of really creating a sacred healing center. And so, yeah, when you were speaking to that, I was definitely could see it in my mind's eye and just feeling excited and reignited about that because I'm definitely I feel like headed toward that direction. And yeah, I'm happy to walk in the process of seeing how it all unfolds because as we know, there's so much magic that you could just never really you can
Here's
you can't even imagine in a wild in all your wildest dreams. It's just like, yeah, I'm just always so excited about things because I always know that once I like if I get a vision or if I get the nudge or the urge to do something, that once I put all my faith and take the leap, then I'm like, wow, I wonder what it's actually going to be.
You are so supported. And like when we started this podcast behind the scenes, it was all Lakshmi vibes. And it's just be open, be open more from this activation, us being together today, to the new downloads for what's next for you. Because
Mhm.
that's what I want this to be, an activation that takes you into a whole new realm of possibility for yourself. Because, girl, that food coming through and these recipes and your hands and the way you work with food and to teach people actually how to prepare their food and work with food, it needs to happen. Like
That
there
is a
needs to
huge
be,
passion. It is a huge passion of mine.
because it's not about you like just doing it for people, it's you training people how to do it, to change the lifestyles
Mm,
of people in homes, like doing workshops, training programs, teaching people what food for what, how to prepare it, how to do energy work with it. Like the sacred stuff that you've been doing needs to be taught to the masses.
I love that, Nicole. That is definitely inspiring for sure.
Yeah. And so when you write a book, and it doesn't have to be a big book, it could even be just a PDF to start and then hold trainings around it, whether you're doing it on the island in person, renting a space and gathering people. They get, their PDF, their workbook for the weekend, or however long you think it is. You can also take it online and have online. But this way, we all need to understand that blessing our water and food is so important, but you have a very special gift with that. Like so much comes through and you
Mhm.
can teach others. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're an educator too. So
Take it all on board.
take it. Take it, take
Mm,
it, take it. All right, everyone. I'm going to have Angela's information where you can follow her on Instagram, her website, and connect with her. And if you're going to the Big Island and you want a personal retreat, you're definitely going to want to check her out and just all her other services. She has so many different services. Her website's beautiful. She's beautiful. And I know this was such an informative, activating, nourishing, loving podcast. And I thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Nicole, I want to also offer to you if anyone reaches out to you or ask you about my surgeon, I'd love to share his
Oh,
information as
yeah.
well so that people can at least if they're in the stages of researching and just kind of on the fence of thinking about it, his consultations are amazing. They're amazing and he will answer a lot of the questions and even without a consultation his website is a plethora of information. So you can go straight there, cut through any of even talking directly to him and just get a lot of information. So I'll email you his
Yeah.
contact and if anybody asks you about it, he's great.
I'll just put it in the show notes. So it'll be in all the show notes. You guys can click on the link and explore it for yourself.
Beautiful.
Thanks again, everyone.
Aloha.
That was so fun.
That was great.
That was so informative.